Right, we're now live.
Thank you.
They could have shut the loo door.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you.
Can't see you though, Tristan.
Bear with me, I'll just try and turn my camera on.
I believe that's past. Is that right, Sadie?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I'll start the meeting. Welcome everybody to tonight's Cabinet meeting on the 1st of December 2020. Before I start, I have an announcement to make for virtual meetings. So I just a couple of seconds while I go through this. I'm Councillor Ken Rattigan, the Leader of the Council and Chair of Cabinet. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting, which is being held virtually in accordance with the Council's rules for virtual meetings, which reflect recently published government regulations. The meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, will also be available to view after the meeting has finished. Councillors are reminded that although this meeting is being held remotely, they are regarded as being present in the meeting of the Council, and they should observe normal rules of behaviour under the Member Code of Conduct and not allow members of their household to distract them during the course of the meeting. Can members ensure that their mobile phones are now switched off or on silent? Members of Cabinet, will you turn on your video link during the meeting and keep their microphones muted unless they are invited to speak by myself as Chair? Members are reminded that if they switch off their video link or move away from the camera, they will be treated as leaving the meeting and will not be able to take part in any vote on the item under discussion. Members can indicate their wish to speak by raising their hand and should only speak when I, the Chair, invite them to do so. Officers present will only switch on their video link where they may wish to be invited to speak by me as chair. As chair, I will confirm the name of any visiting speaker at the appropriate time in the agenda who will address the committee by audio link. Councillors should declare that they are leaving the meeting and switch off their video link if they have a disclosable pecuniary interest or other personal interest in an item on the agenda. Councillors can switch off their video link when I call the next agenda item. Voting will take place as a roll call, and I will confirm the recommendation proposed to the committee before the voting begins. Can each member indicate whether they are for or against the recommendation, or whether they wish to abstain? Hopefully we'll not have any IT issues, but can I remind councillors that if their connection is lost, that they should immediately advise Democratic Services Support Officer and use the meeting link to access the meeting again. Thank you for listening. Just before we start, just to remind you all Cabinet that there are speakers with us tonight. Councillor McCormack will be speaking on 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, and Councillor Freeman will be speaking on item 8. So they will be invited to speak straight after the introduction from the portfolio holder, and we will listen to them for up to 4 minutes on any item. So I hope that is okay with everyone. Now we move to the agenda. I have no apologies for absence on tonight's agenda. I have no declarations of pecuniary interest in front of me, but can I confirm that none of you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? No? Then I take that. Item 3 is urgent matters. There are no urgent matters before me, and therefore we'll move to item number 4, which are the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of November. They are pages 5 to 10 in your agenda. I have seen them and signed them as correct, but is there any alterations or amendments that require additions to DEM services? No? Then perfect. We move now to the agenda as it's set out in front of you. Item 5 is the Q2 revenue monitoring report, which is on page 11 of your agenda. At this time, I would like to ask Councillor Andrew McCormack to say a few words. First, we'll get Hannah to introduce it, I think, first, and then we'll get Andy onto it, and then we'll debate any points that he raises on that. So Hannah, would you want to introduce it to us?
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for your patience, Councillor McCormick. This report presents the revenue forecast position for 2020-2021 as at the end of September 2020. As we know, things have changed a little since then. It does continue to be a difficult year with significant challenges across the council, both in terms of us delivering additional support services, but also in having to adapt very quickly to a significant change in income. COVID continues to have a huge impact on the council's finances, with the most significant impact of £5.53 million currently forecast to be in this financial year, although further impact is also forecast across the MTFS period. The council has done well to reduce expenditure where possible, and this, alongside additional support from the government, continues that we have stability in our funding for our core services, but also the priorities across our council plan. However, I do feel I should point out that the funding received from government continues to be less than the financial pressures we are seeing. The position for us therefore does remain challenging, especially now following a second lockdown. However, the moratorium on spend and the recruitment freeze continues. Officers and cabinet members are regularly reviewing the financial system to ensure we are able to quickly respond to new challenges as they arise. And we also continue to lobby central government and alongside other local government partners for financial support, both for us now, but also in future years. So colleagues, in summary, the financial climate does continue to be challenging, and further work must be done to manage our finances throughout this year. However, we shouldn't underestimate the great work that our officers have done already this year, especially while they've also been dealing with extra work and a constant reams of grants which are vital to support our local economy. And I therefore ask Cabinet to note points 1 to 8 on page 12 of the agenda after we've heard from our speaker.
Thank you, Hannah. Annie McCormick, I'd like to invite you forward to give us your 4 minutes of time and raise any points you wish to on this paper.
Thank you, Leader. I appreciate that this is still a very dynamic situation, given that we're in our second lockdown, just about to come out, and there are other financial developments that may change the picture yet again. I just had 3 questions, really. The first was just to ask for some clarification on 2 sets of figures. On page 2 and on table 1, page 4, government funding is quoted at £2.36 million. And on table 2 on page 20, it's quoted at £3.36 million. So just wondering which it is, because that's quite a big difference between the 2. There's obviously quite a big gap, irrespective of whether it's 2 or 3 million, because of the cost pressures that we got, 5.5 million. Second question, on page 12, bullet point 5, this 0.72 million, is that on top of the existing budget gap identified in Cabinet last week, which has changes out for consultation? And my third question is regarding the business rate and council tax collection rates. Now, I note that the business rate collection rate is at 55%, which is 1.3% below target, and the council tax collection rate is at 41%, which is 1.5% below target. And I would like to ask what plans are in place to address these and monitor business rate and council tax collection rates going forward. And also just to comment that there are some government funding figures quoted in table 1. We do appear in many cases to be getting quite a low share of that funding, quite a paltry share in some cases. Test and Trace, we're just getting 130,000 out of a 50 million pot. And COVID Marshals, we're getting £70,000 out of a 30 million pot. And I also note that we're getting £20 million towards our business rate versus a drop of nearly 36 million. So whichever way you slice it, what's coming from government is not going to address the gaps that we're going to have to plug as a council. And I guess another question arising from that is that because we are a relatively well provisioned, financially stable council, and there are other councils who are more in need that are going to get more money?
I'll ask the officers just to confirm the figures as you've outlined in your first question. Do we have our Finance 151 officer on this? If we don't, then we'll definitely get an answer. Councillor Golding, would you like to answer the other couple of questions?
Sorry, I've struggled to keep up with your page numbers, Councillor McCormick. I will definitely refer to our finance team in terms of your variance of £1 million, but I suspect if you look at point 5.5, I suspect this is why. In that at the time of reporting was 30th of September, but since then we have had another payment of nearly £1 million from the government. So I suspect that's the difference, but we will follow that up with you. I think, yes, absolutely, we will. This is why we are lobbying to try and get further support from government, because it is not meeting our shortfalls. However, I think we are also taking responsibility for that as a local council. We have taken proactive steps in order to make savings this year, and we will do what we need to in order to make sure we can deliver our core services, but also manage the finance as well.
As an additional point, obviously the comprehensive spending review will churn out some capital to us. That will hopefully help the situation. But the grants that we will hand out to businesses, we will use them to our best advantage of the whole of the borough and the businesses that have suffered most. Now, obviously, a number of those haven't yet opened again, such as hospitality, so they do not yet know the severity of some of the impacts of the second set of restrictions. But we will use the monies that we have, either from central government or in our own funds, to make sure that support is aligned to what help they require. Do you have any supplementaries on that, Andy?
No, thanks, Leader. I think that kind of sums it up, really. We are in a pretty dire situation, but then so's the rest of the country.
Agreed. Therefore, is there any cabinet members want to talk to this paper, or shall we take the recommendation that we note? Oh, sorry, John Isaac.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I just wanted to echo what Councillor Golding said about the report. I think, firstly, what strikes me is the enormity of the challenge that we're having to deal with at the moment as a council. There's been cost pressures in 2021 of 5.53 million, which is 1.1 million of additional costs and 4.43 million of reduced income. And those two represent 17% of our overall income as a council. And the fact that we are managing to deal with these extreme circumstances so well, I think reflects well on the disciplined and conservative way that we run our finances in this council. We're not in the same position that so many other councils around the land are, and it's testament to our the fact that we've got reserves, that Hannah and the finance officer team have implemented with cabinet support tighter controls, a recruitment freeze, and are improving our efficiency in the way that we work as a council. So I think this speaks very highly of the way that the council's finances are managed in Basingstoke.
Thank you for that. Any other cabinet members wish to speak to this paper? No. Then therefore I move the cabinet notes 1 to 8 as recommended on page 12 of your agendas. Are we agreed that we note it? Thank you. We move now to the capital monitoring report, which is agenda item number 6. Once again, I'd ask Hannah to talk to this paper in the foreword and their additional comments.
Thank you, Councillor Rattigan. As with our revenue budget, our capital programme continues to be impacted by COVID-19. Delivering capital investment into our borough is vital, and the council's commitment to this has not changed, but the report does show a higher level of delayed spend than is usual. In contrast, several projects have been brought forward under delegated powers in order to support local communities. Section 106 contributions have been used to part fund an extension at St Luke's Hall in Overton, which enables groups to use the hall with social distancing in place. Funding has also been brought forward for a multi-use games arena in Buckskin to improve facilities to young people and to address some issues with antisocial behaviour, and consultation on this project is planned. Funding for school toilet improvements in Chinham, solar panel for Chinham Village Hall and improvements to a church hall in Chinham have also been brought forward. Capital funding has also been approved to support 4 additional single-bedroom social rented homes within the borough, as over 50% of the council's housing register is households needing just 1 bedroom. This is a welcome investment. So looking forward, capital expenditure for this year is forecast to be £2.367 million lower than the latest approved budget, and the details of that are shown for cabinet members on page 43. This is largely attributed to delay spend and is regularly monitored by the Capital Programme Board, but the reasons for each delay are also outlined in this report. So in summary, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to challenge the timely implementation of our capital programme, but it is not stopping the Council from delivering needed improvements to community facilities. And I therefore seek Cabinet support this evening to note the 8 points which are outlined on page 40 of your agenda.
Thank you. I'm grateful for that. Councillor McCormick, can we ask you to make your comments to this agenda item?
Oh, thank you, Leader. So I really had 5 questions with a bit of comment attached to it. Question 1, how much of our capital budget is being spent addressing the climate emergency, and how has that been impacted by COVID? Question 2, referring to section 4.3 on page 45, Carnival Hall boiler, what's it being replaced with? Should we be phasing out boilers to address the climate emergency? Section 4.4, third question, section 4.4, town centre car parks, which other car parks are being worked on and why is there a review of need? Fourth question, section 4.5, green initiatives. What are these? How many complete this year and how many have been delayed? And the final question, question 5 on table 4, page 47, shows reduced balances in spite of delayed works, which indicates capital grants and contributions are not being paid as promised. Why is this and what action is being taken to address this?
Councillor Golding, do you want to pick up any of these? Because I don't see a finance officer with us yet.
No, those are particularly technical questions. I don't know if some of those projects are in different people's portfolios, so I don't know whether anybody feels they are able to come in on those. However, if not, then I will get you a written response, Councillor McCormick.
Councillor Bound, you would like to intercede on this?
I can pick up specifically about the community facilities. There is a reality that says questions are asked about the climate impact as far as heating works that are going on, and at this time there are still community buildings where we aren't currently able to put things that aren't boilers in. They're always looked at to see whether that's something that we can do, but of course what we do is make sure the most efficient boilers are put in if that building or location, because often it's very much about site, we put in the most efficient boilers and equipment that we can.
Thank you. Andy, just to say that we expect developers to provide the contributions as expected and on time. Obviously, that doesn't mean that we always get them on time, and certainly we will ensure that if there is a commitment to fund this council by them, that we get that money and make sure that it is used for the benefit of our residents. Any other cabinet members want to address this agenda item?
If I may, Leader.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see you in the dark there. Councillor Tristan Robinson.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome, in particular, nearly £200,000 of capital investment in the scheme at Park Heights. This scheme will enable us to provide an additional 4 units of single persons accommodation, which, as Councillor Golding outlined, is the most desired part of accommodation in the borough, according to our housing needs register, and this will help us meet a need for single people in particular who are in desperate need of housing in our borough. I'd also in particular like to welcome the funding of around £400,000 for the low-cost home ownership scheme, which is a trailblazing scheme developed by this council to enable young people to own a home of their own. Thank you very much, Leader.
I'm grateful for that, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Eaches.
Thank you, Leader. Sorry, I couldn't find the virtual hand on here. It was just to say I know a number of those questions that Councillor McCormick raised do fall into my portfolio. So I will assist Councillor Golden in just providing this, because I've got the information, but probably just not to hand, and I don't want to get it wrong. So I'll assist Councillor Golden in getting some written responses on those points.
I think it'd be very important, and I'm sure that we can relay them to all council members as who may be watching tonight, so it would be useful for them to receive the same information as Councillor McCormick. Therefore, I ask that we note the recommendations from 1 to 8 on page 40. Are we agreed with that? Agreed. I see no dissent. Perfect. Then I'd ask you now to move to item number 7 on your agendas. We got that? I think this one is. This is the annual property report for the half year, Q2. It's the property investment strategy, and I would like Councillor John Isaac to introduce this.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is the half year annual property report, and it's for noting. I think it's generally a positive outcome that's being reported here. What it tells us is that we've implemented in full the 2017-18 property investment strategy, which, if you will recall, was a decision to allocate £30 million to acquire additional commercial property investments in the borough to obtain higher income returns. That has been accomplished, and we have this has resulted in currently another £1.7 million per annum of extra income, which is obviously very useful given the difficulties that we're facing as a council at the moment with everything that's going on, not least COVID. And once the Eli Lilly HQ, which is currently under construction and will be completed next year, has been completed, that will increase the overall income from the investment, which is going to be slightly over £30 million, to £2.31 million. Looking ahead, the report speaks of the need for proactive asset management of the portfolio, which is a significant one, as we all know, something in the order of £300 million worth of assets. And there's a lot of work going on by officers at the moment in terms of restructuring of ground leases, which will bring new investment into buildings and sites that have now become dilapidated and no longer fit for purpose. And a number of important rent reviews that are underway at Basingview, Danes Hill, Hound Mills and Viables. We also need to be looking at disposals for those parts of the property portfolio that are either management intensive or not producing the right sort of returns and so forth. We've tendered for new corporate property advisors following the end of the contract with Cushman and Wakefield, and JLL, who are an international practice, have been appointed, and I think they've made a good start from what I can see. And their initial view is of our portfolio is that it's pretty robust, and because of the heavy weighting towards industrial, that is the best place to be in terms of commercial property currently. They're going to advise on the future corporate property strategy, our allocations in various sectors, whether it be retail, offices or industrial or hotels, and also advise us on disposals and regeneration. The objective of all this work will be to increase our rental income and work towards a more balanced, efficient and stable property portfolio. We'll also, with their help, be looking at applying a national property performance index to measure the performance of our portfolio. Finally, we have responded to the impact of COVID, and there has been help given to some of the council's business tenants in terms of deferred rents or conversion from quarterly to monthly payments. And that concludes my my report.
I'm grateful for that, Councillor Isaac, and it's a very strong report. Councillor McCormick, you have some questions that you'd like to raise or a statement you'd like to make?
Thank you, Leader. Just one question on this report. On the table on page 60, section 3.2, I note that we have £23.6 million invested in commercial properties and another 8.9 million going into Eli Lilly. To what extent do the people of Basingstoke directly benefit from this? And can we expect similar investments in our football club and ice rink when they need it, as they do?
Councillor McCormick, I am not sure what returns we would get on our money if we were to invest in private firms. So it is not the strategy of this council to invest in private enterprise. We allow individuals to make that decision for themselves. The council will take a view on it if there are a set of proposals in front of us, but currently there is nothing in front of us, and therefore we cannot just put our finger in the wind and go, yeah, it feels good, it feels the right thing to do, because that is not the way that we need to deal with its finances. The report in front of you, headed up by Councillor Isaac, is strong and robust, and if you look at, as you have already, the rates of return on these assets, they are far in excess of what would be available on deposit, and certainly we ensure through our finance team that that money is reinvested into us as a borough to keep our council tax low and our services high. So all of the things that you would expect are in this report, but we are not a speculative council, because we cannot take chances with people's money that has been invested over many years to build up a situation where we are financially stable and we do not end up in the property owning lottery that Croydon Council, which I hate to say was a Labour council, have enacted. Their call for a bankruptcy as a council is a reminder that what we do for our public is very, very important, and the stability of our council tax and their fee paying should be uppermost in our mind at all times. I take it if those are your only comments, you're happy with the rest of the report, as am I, but I will ask my cabinet colleagues if they want to make further comment to this agenda item.
Well, I do have a supplemental.
Of course.
I mean, there's no monopoly on any political shade on councils that are in financial trouble at the moment. The Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead's not far down the road, and they were very close to having a Section 104 notice issued prior to the pandemic, and a lot of other councils are in that same boat, to the extent that issuing notices was suspended due to the crisis, and who knows what we're going to be like. But I would like to point out that this council did own a significant amount of the land at the Camrose ground that the football club stands on, and it actually did build the ice rink and initially owned the ice rink. So we do have a track record in these things, and when it looks like these things, which are of manifest public benefit, are in trouble, I think it is incumbent on us as a council to help out and not say we're not getting involved in private enterprise, because they weren't always private. We've had a stake in those in the past, and things can change pretty quickly in the commercial property market as well. as we are finding out at the moment with retail, which I won't go into detail on because we've got that in the next item.
Councillor Isaac, you are an expert in property. Would you like to reply to some of that?
Yes, I would. Yes, I think you've responded very well, Leader, and our residents certainly do directly benefit from the holdings that we have in commercial property, and we're very cautious. We don't borrow to invest in property, and it's very much about the sort of returns that we look for, and you're quite right, Councillor Rattigan, that those returns wouldn't be available in relation to a football club or to an ice rink, I think it was the Labour administration that sold the ice rink many years ago. So we're trying to do what we can to help there. So we understand the value of the ice rink to the people of Basingstoke, but we're going to do it with not going to abandon our principles in terms of making sure that the residents of this borough get value for money in anything we do. And I think that's probably. In relation to the Camros, well, of course, it's not so straightforward to say we used to own it. We had the freehold, but it was subject to a very long lease. So our ownership of the Camros ground has always been very remote. 50, 60 years before it reverts to the council. So again, I think one's got to sort of make sure one understands the real underlying facts on these things.
Thank you. Councillor Golden, do you want to say anything on this, on the finance that we recover and get from our property portfolio?
I think our property portfolio is an asset to this council. It has been performing very solidly, and it is a key point. We bring back more from investments like that than we bring in through council tax, and I think I certainly will look for that to continue in the future.
Great, thank you for that. Cabinet colleagues, is there anything that you would like to add to the property plan portfolio investment strategy that has not been said through Councillor Isaac?
If I may briefly, Leader.
Sorry, I thought you disappeared for a second there. Councillor Robinson.
No, thank you, Leader. I think this property strategy shows, as Councillor Isaac mentioned, the strong financial management that we see as part of this administration. The property portfolio is something that has been a mainstay of this council for some time, and it delivers a significant proportion of our revenue budget, indeed many times that over that we see from council tax, and our residents directly benefit from that. We have the lowest council tax of any district council in England as a result, and we also have in the top 10 highest spend per head. So residents see more jobs, more growth as a result of this investment in property. They see their council tax bill kept at a record low, and we can also afford to fund some of the investments that we fund. And by investments there, I talk about our investment in community sports facilities, our investment in community recreation facilities that we see come through month by month as part of the local infrastructure fund, as part of our Section 106 agreements, and indeed with the next paper that we'll see tonight, where we talk about further investment in sports and leisure around the borough. So I would like to thank Councillor Isaac for this report and look forward to this continuing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, I'm grateful for that. Are there no other hands raised? Then I would ask, therefore, that you note the recommendation on page 58, that Cabinet notes the property investment strategy half-year report for Q2 2020 to 21. This report does not require a decision, but is noted in accordance with the governance arrangements included in the Council's agreed Property Investment Strategy Annual Property Plan 2021 as approved by Cabinet in February of this year. Are we agreed? Thank you all. We now move to agenda item number 8. I will ask the Cabinet Member for Planning, Infrastructure and the Natural Environment to introduce this agenda item, and then we have 2 speakers to give Andy a small rest I will call forward Councillor Freeman first and then Councillor McCormack. So Councillor Raffel, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. We are required now to produce an infrastructure funding statement each calendar year. That's by virtue of government statutory legislation. And this needs to set out the factual information in relation to Section 106 and the Community Infrastructure Levy in respect of the amounts received and spent. It also needs to detail where the council expects to spend money received from the Community Infrastructure Levy in the future. And attached to this report, which we are to note and to approve the list that I'm about to mention as Appendix 1 is Appendix 1, which sets out matters that have previously been part of the Regulation 123 list relating to transport, education, community, sports, green infrastructure, flooding and water. And then we are being asked also to grant delegated powers to the head of planning, sustainability and infrastructure to approve other elements of the infrastructure funding statement in consultation with the portfolio holder. So that is the report. Let's hear what the speakers have got to say, please, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Raffel. Councillor Angie Freeman, over to you. You've got 4 minutes to make your points. Councillor Freeman, I can see you're there, so we're ready for you. Councillor Freeman, maybe your microphone's still on mute.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Good evening, Cabinet, and thank you, Leader. I'd like to talk about the Appendix 1, section on education. It mentions expansions to existing secondary schools. Now, I would like to question whether this is actually necessary, given the fact that Hampshire County Council have consistently told us that we have enough secondary provision in Basingstoke, and this is the reason that the new secondary school on Manydown will not be built anywhere in the near future. Also, I'm seriously concerned that if we expand our secondary schools we have at the moment, then this leads to the likelihood that the proposed secondary school on Manydown will be even longer before it's built, and then residents on the northwest of Basingstoke still don't have a reasonably distant secondary school to send their children to. Many children on Winklebury now have to take a bus halfway across town to get to school, and long travelling times are disadvantageous to students. I seriously do not understand why we are allocating SIL money towards secondary school places that we have been told by Hampshire County Council we don't need. And again, like I said, the prospect of building on Manydown will be reduced if we expand our secondary schools any further. I see this as very short-sighted, and I don't think it will help the council and our residents' children anytime in the future. We need to make sure, I'm questioning whether it's necessary to spend the money in the first place, and what the long-term effects of expanding existing secondary schools will be for this side of Basingstoke, where we don't have a secondary school within walking distance.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Manny, I will add my comments in a second, but I'll hand you over to Councillor Isaac, who is in charge of the Manydown work, and then Councillor Raffel, and then myself, if that's okay. So, Councillor Isaac, do you want to say anything on the Manydown proposals? If not, then I'll leave it to others.
Thank you, Leader. Well, it seems to me that we should welcome further investment into existing schools. Why wouldn't we? Manydown, the development of the secondary school at Manydown will be something that will be determined by the growth of the population on Manydown and around it. And obviously that's ultimately in the hands of HCC, but Hampshire County Council, but We are providing the land for a secondary school on Many Down, and if we can make sure that Many Down, the development of Many Down is accelerated and new homes are built, then I hope it'll be the new school will arrive sooner than Councillor Freeman fears.
Thank you. Councillor Ruffell, do you want to add anything into that?
Well, I just want to lay the fears of Councillor Freeman. The list has been drafted based upon what's in the section 123 list or whatever it's called, and we're all due to revisit this in the next 12 months or so when we do the local plan update. So what was widely drafted previously may well be narrowed down when matters are looked at more closely, but this represents where we currently are, and that's why I'm seeking approval on where we currently are. It's not a situation tonight for taking things out. Those discussions will come along at a later point when it becomes clearer on whether this funding should be for these particular projects.
Thank you for that. I mean, obviously, the education of our youth is vital to us all, and therefore any money that goes into schooling, whether it's from ourselves or HCC or the academies that may come along in the future, it is vital. We cannot continue to see the youth of the best of the youth leave our borough to get their education. Many go to Winchester. In my area, many go to West Berkshire for their education. And if we do not keep in our eye line the need for better education and better facilities within our schools, I think we are missing a trick. But we will take your views on the Many Down situation to heart, and therefore we will store them as the work on that continues into the future. Thank you for your comments tonight.
Can I just say,
of course.
I have no objection to improving the facilities at existing secondary schools. I'm just concerned about where it says the expansion of the secondary schools, meaning extra places. And like I say, at the moment, Hampshire County Council have told us we don't need them. And so this goes against that. And again, I'm just seriously concerned if we expand the existing schools, we'll end up with, it will take even longer to get a suitable secondary built on Many Down.
Can I say that an expansion could be SEN provision, or it could be a language unit for those who don't have English as a first language, and therefore we should always consider what is the right expansion, not just the fact that it's going to expand in terms of numbers. It might well be an expansion in terms of facilities. Councillor Bound.
I was just going to add to that, if I may, Councillor Rattigan, that says fundamentally, of course, it is quite a complicated science. And of course, we've got PAN numbers, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's building capacity in secondary schools. So we know some of our schools have quite a lot of capacity in their buildings, but absolutely they aren't filling them with their admission numbers at the moment. So your point's very well made as far as expanding places doesn't necessarily mean that it's admissions. It doesn't necessarily mean it's extending of buildings. And also going to Councillor Ruffell's point, as far as the local plan, we have raised this with the Education Authority to make that assessment ready for our local plan review, so that we've got our school places where our population needs them. So hopefully that will be something that comes out of that process.
Thank you for that. Councillor Freeman, are you happy with that? I hope so.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Shall we move now on to Councillor McCormick? You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Leader. 4 minutes, 4 questions. I'll be as brief as possible. And there's a lot of ambitious schemes in there, especially the transport schemes on the list. So my first question, having noted that Chidham Station's on the list, is when can we expect to see Chidham Station built? My second question is what SIL funding can we expect for libraries given South Ham is closing? My third question is looking at the sports facilities. There's 13 sports facilities listed. 9 out of the 13 sports facilities are listed in rural areas, and just 2, Downgrange and the Vine, are in the town. Why is this, and what proportion of funding will these schemes attract, given that the rural schemes serve less than 40% of the borough's population? And my fourth and final question is, nothing appears to be allocated to address the climate emergency or air quality issues, and I'd like to understand why that is as well.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ruffell or Councillor Bean, do you want to pick up any of those points?
I'm very happy for Councillor Bean to pick up the sports matters, but as I said before, this all comes from what was set out previously in the Regulation 123 list. So if things are on here which seem to be far greater than SIL money would ever fund, like improvements to Junction 7 of the M3, the building of stations, it's no surprise you're not going to get a sensible answer out of us to say, oh yes, new station is going to be built next year. It's just not going to happen like that because the money raised will not achieve it. As far as sports facilities being here and the ambitions for them, I think Councillor Bean may be in a better position to answer that, or at least explain where we are on some of those issues. Again, they're probably very ambitious and probably put in as aspirations as well as obviously hopes, but she may be able to answer better than me.
Clearly, we continually invest in sports facilities. I take the point that it does seem to be quite heavily swayed to the rural locations in this list. So I will take away, Councillor McCormick, that point and come back to you with a written response as to what's in there and why.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Andy? Or should we answer the other bits first?
Can I answer a bit more?
Yeah.
I mean, one's got to also remember where the new development might be. Now, that doesn't apply across the board, but there is going to be new development in Kingsclear, Oakley, Overton, Whitchurch, Bramley, and that's at least half of the lists there. So new populations and expanding sports facilities come hand in glove. And the existing population in the centre of Basingstoke won't necessarily get the funding from SIL or Section 106 to support their facilities, but will get presumably capital grants and other things that the council's doing via other means. So one can't, as it were, say that that is a measure of what the commitment is. This is a measure of where money might come from as a result of new development.
Thank you. Cabinet, have you got any other questions before I ask Andy if you'd like a supplementary? Councillor McCormick, would you like to add to your question list or make a statement?
Well, a part statement, part question, really. So I didn't get an answer from libraries, but I'm not expecting there to be very much money available for libraries. The brutal exercise the county went through in the summer means that we're going to be losing South Ham Library, and against expectations, we saved Chinham thanks to a marvellous resident-led campaign. I'm still at a bit of a loss as to why we're not having any more environmental schemes in there. There's all sorts of aspirational schemes that we could sign up to. Some of these items, like Chinham Station, we've been talking about for 20 years. Now is the time, with the climate emergency and with other potential pots of money trying to promote modal shift as a result of the COVID crisis. And let's not forget, Chinham has a big business park and a very large amount of residential housing, more on the way, I expect. It was promised as a prerequisite for Sherfield Park being built. The Sherfield Park is being built, the station hasn't been built. We really need to think very seriously about taking people out of their cars and offering alternatives. So I would welcome any feedback on that. Especially given where we are and the urgency of some of these things relating to climate.
Thank you. Councillor Ruffell, do you want to talk about the cycle initiatives and the walking initiatives that are set, not just in this piece of work, but in many others?
Well, absolutely, Leader. This is part of the transport strategy, and indeed in recent discussions and briefings from Hampshire County Council to the EPH committee and to members, also ward councillors nearer to the A33, the concept of trying to have Chinham Station in the mix as being a solution that supports people travelling by rail or some mechanism that is alternative to a car is in there, and it's an open discussion, it's an ongoing discussion. We're going to continue having those discussions with Network Rail, as well as obviously the broader plans of introducing much more, I would like to say cycles as super highways, but I think we're moving in that direction. And obviously the conversations about mass rapid transport are happening, certainly from the southwestern corner of the borough near Junction 7 up to the centre of Basingstoke. That is a conversation that we as councillors, we as Cabinet, but certainly in the open meetings we have with other councillors, we're discussing that on a weekly basis. It is a hot topic and we want to see that fulfilled. So I'm optimistic that these solutions are coming through. To answer Councillor McCormick's point about why this isn't in the list, I can't give him a straight answer as to whether it should be in the list, because bear in mind the money that comes in from SIL and Section 106 is what is needed to make a development acceptable. And whether, as it were, when improvements or to make a biodiversity net gain or matters to do with climate change are matters that are, as it were, that are dealt with in the planning process, but not through funding. Now, I can't answer to say whether that's definitely the case or whether there should actually be a section on here, but I'll certainly look into it. And if there needs to be an update and improvement, then of course we'll introduce it.
Councillor Eachus, you've worked very hard on cleaner air, especially around our schools. Would you like to add something into this piece?
Yeah, absolutely. We've obviously had the climate emergency, and we've all signed up to that cross-party, and it's really important. It was at CEP recently. The consultation's just come to an end, and that's coming back again in January. We've got a map which Councillor McCormick sits on. So all of this is really important. There's lots going on, and where there's government grants, we've got officers looking into that and getting on top of those where we can. And like Councillor Fowle saying, just because it's not there, it doesn't mean that the funding isn't elsewhere. And we're not saying we're not going to fund projects. We want to be ambitious. Where we can, we will do that. And there's lots of work going on in the background. And then just in relation to the electric, more greener ways of travelling, we're doing a lot with electric vehicles. We've put the first local authority charging hub in Feathers Yard. I appreciate that's just one step. But it's a step in the right direction. We've got a lot more to go, but we're looking at putting chargers at Wade Road, so our ops team could become more electric, and looking at with Hampshire County Council to get electric chargers in residential areas where people don't have driveways, looking at getting them put in community centres further out in areas like Whitchurch. There is one going in there, areas like Kingsclear. So the funding, we are funding those things, and we are getting there. And just because it's not set in this paper, there's lots of other pots that we're dealing with and lots of work going on, and I'd like to provide that reassurance.
Thank you for that. Councillor Robinson, you wish to make a point?
Thank you, Leader. A couple of points, if I may. The first is on Chinham Station, and one of the primary reasons that Chinham Station wasn't developed was actually because there was a resistance from the rail authority to there was a comment made that the station could be built, but actually that the rail authority were not keen on stopping there. And this is quite an interesting point around that line, in that the line from Basingstoke to Reading only has one line in each direction, and it is in fact the main line between Southampton and Reading and further north, so it takes quite a lot of freight. And you have the issue at Bramley Station, for example, where the crossing is down on average for 43 minutes of the average hour and up to 40 minutes at a time. And if you add another commuter station on there where you have a train stopping at regular intervals, you hold back all that freight and actually you clog up the line, and it's not actually possible to do that. So there, clearly with the electrification of the line, that's allowed Green Park further up the line, and hopefully that will add Chinham Station in due course. But I think Councillor Reaches's point about this paper more generally is quite helpful in that it's not a panacea. It's not the only thing, and it's not the only document, and it's not the only way that we can look to fund infrastructure in our borough. This only in the main talks about SIL and Section 106, but one of the ways that we can also work is to attract private investment into the borough too, which is really important, to fund some of the schemes that we might want to see that aren't on this list, perhaps like a new station at Manydown / Oakley, to enable the new development there to be able to access on that main line to London. One of the things I'd also like to welcome is the fact that this report doesn't just focus on hard infrastructure. I think there's always a temptation in local authorities to just focus on hard infrastructure, road, rail and the like. And I'd particularly like to welcome in the report the items under green infrastructure, particularly talking about strategic habitat restoration and creation. I think that's really important, and strategic open space provision to ensure that we're living in a partnership with the natural environment too, as well as the hard infrastructure to allow humans to move around, that we're taking into account the natural environment too. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that. Cabinet colleagues, is there anything else you'd like to add to the debate on item 7? Or shall I move to the recommendation that's in front of us? Okay, we'll do that now then. It's recommended that Cabinet notes the contents of this report, including the proposals to undertake a review of the areas of future spend associated with community infrastructure levy in the spring. Additionally, to approve the infrastructure list that's outlined in Appendix 1, which many of us have reviewed, including the infrastructure funding statement publication on the Borough Council's website prior to 31st of December this year, and to the Head of Planning, Sustainability and Infrastructure is granted delegated powers to approve the other elements of the infrastructure funding statement in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning, infrastructure and the natural environment. Are we agreed that that is recommended for us and moved on to the individuals who are named in that? Are we agreed? Then thank you. We move now to item number 9, which has some pink papers with us. Obviously, we cannot have discussions of the pink papers, so we will need to make a choice whether we go into a closed session to discuss the pink papers, or we accept that we will not stray into them and keep the debate on the publicly participation bit, that is from page 75 to page 85. We do have a speaker tonight. It's Councillor McCormick. I know that I don't have to ask him about pink papers. Hopefully he would not stray into them. I just want to go through what is in front of us first. Obviously, this is the ballot together, the Business Improvement District ballot that is now up for renewal. Since the establishment in 2016, the Basingstoke Together Business Improvement District has provided a wide range of facilities and services that have contributed greatly to the vibrancy and health of the town centre. It is difficult times now, I accept. In these uncertain times and the impact of COVID on the economy, the bid continues to be a key council partner in supporting our town centre businesses and helping them recover from the crisis. The bid will also have a key role to play in supporting the council's ambitions for Basingstoke's town centre as we embark on the development of a long-term strategy to ensure that the town centre remains attractive and vibrant for years to come. Should the bid decide to hold the ballot, and that is not yet decided, I wish them every success. If the businesses vote in favour of bid renewal, the council will continue to work closely with the bid and stand behind our town centre businesses to help them develop as they come out of the COVID pandemic. I introduce Councillor McCormick now. Can I have your assurance, Councillor McCormick, that we will not stray into the pink papers? Otherwise, I'll need to go into private session.
Thank you, Leader. It is definitely not my intention to go into the pink papers. I'm going to speak on the white papers. I just had a number of questions.
Of course.
You will then have the opportunity to answer or say, hang on, that's pink. Why would it be necessary for the chief executive to veto the bid proposals? That would be my first question. The second question is, given the alarming news we've had, the dramatic news recently of the collapse of Arcadia in Debenhams, and there's significant square footage. You know, Debenhams is our anchor store in Festival Place, and we've got at least 3 other stores that are Arcadia stores there. You know, how's that going to affect these proposals? Third question is, where are we with the new river deal, given the current retail climate? And my fourth question, which I'll ask now, it's more by means of a supplemental. Why would we continue with new river retail if our town centre is under threat from the current events with COVID and the hit being taken by retail?
Thank you for those questions. I can tell you, obviously, that the chief executive with the returning officer may find fault in the ballot, and that would allow for the result to be set aside. I would not expect that to happen, and it would be a pretty dramatic turn for our new chief executive if he was to come in and do that, but with guidance from our returning officer. So I do not expect that to happen. Obviously, the news from Arcadia and from Debenhams this week is hugely distressing, not just for customers, but more importantly about the staff and the well-being of us as a town. Debenhams is a flagship store, an entrance into Festival Place, and any loss there would be gravely affecting of Festival Place. My hope, of course, is that some phoenix comes out from the ashes. Whether that is possible for the whole of the store, I do not know, but of course it sits on 3 floors and holds a huge floor space. So we will endeavour to stretch out to find out what can happen to that, and we will give support to not just to the staff if they are unfortunate to be made redundant, but obviously to Festival Place to find ways to rejig and alter their retail offering. I cannot promise that we will find a solution to this. Obviously, it was a nationwide problem for those 2 large businesses, but I am sure better brains than mine will be focused on how these businesses can be rescued if that is at all possible. And I'm sure every effort will be made both locally and nationally to achieve that. As for your New River retail, as you've rightly pointed out, it is a moving scenario all the time. And of course, we are in discussions with New River Retail to find out, even in the midst of this pandemic, what their view is as they move forward, whether the retail offering will be exactly the same as it was previously. I cannot tell you, but you can be assured that my cabinet and my portfolio holder for property will be alive to anything that will endanger the town centre, but also we need to look for enhancements in our retail offering. I think the understanding that I have is that the good will survive, and many stores are thriving in the way they've adapted, altered, changed how they've delivered retail to the wider public, and we will support any of our partners, whether that be New River Retail, whether it's the Malls ourselves or Festival Place, in helping them find new ways to deliver their goods to our people. And rest assured that we will do everything and keep you informed and the council informed as those discussions move forward. I don't want to say anything more particularly on that. Councillor Isaac, is there anything you want to add to that New River retail points?
Thank you, Leader. I think you've covered it sufficiently for this evening, so I won't add anything further.
I'm grateful for that. Councillor McCormick, a chance for a supplementary.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would say is, you know, I wholeheartedly support the sentiment behind these proposals, because I would like to see some more independent trade and craft stores in the town. We used to have a very rich offering years ago. It would be great to see a butcher's, a baker's, fishmonger's, deli, a fair trade shop, arts and crafts. People still miss the papersmiths, stationers, printer cartridges, pet supplies. We need to think about how we might improve the diversity of our retail offer and promote it as a destination. I think there are challenges ahead, but there are also opportunities. You know, we do have a certain number of empty units in the top of town, and it would be great to see them filled. I've also noticed that a lot of the shop units are adapting very quickly. So Lush being an example, where Lush Local is now a pure delivery service. When Lush is shut during the lockdown, their online orders are being processed in the stores and delivered locally. So I would like to think that there are things that we can take from that, examples of good practice, and use those to support our retailers in the town. It is, you know, a big asset, a big draw for Basingstoke, the retail base. And if we lose a significant amount of it, then we will be all the poorer for it.
I totally agree, and that's why we have given support to the Borough Basket, which has picked up about 50 firms to try and sell their wares online and give them access to people either who can't or won't come into town at the current time, but can provide an avenue for them to make sales to our wider community. So look, we will do what we can in that, and obviously I look forward to the support of all councillors in helping the bid move forward as time demands. Councillor Bean, you are on the bid. Is there anything that you would like to add to tonight's discussions?
I don't think so, Andy. I think you've made some really valid points there in terms of that offering. I think one of the key issues that we have at the top of the town, particularly with the empty units, is that we don't own them, which fundamentally makes that a bit more challenging. Just on your point around Debenhams and the implication, I think you meant in terms of the bid ballot. The key thing for the bid is ensuring that 50% of the vote is yes, and then equally that the rateable value is over 50%. So I think Debenhams is a worry, but I'm sure the bid will be working hard to make sure that they get enough of those yes votes come out when they do go to ballot. But I think that's all from me. Obviously, the bid are a valuable partner, and you know, we need to do everything we can to support them at the moment.
Thank you. I'm grateful for that. Councillor Brown and Councillor Eachus, you both indicated you might want to speak. Councillor Eachus first.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Sorry, a bit late to the party at this, but
no,
it's just it's a declaration of interest point. I'm not sure, and it's definitely not a pecuniary interest, but I think everybody probably knows that I'm a partner in a law firm that is in the bid area. I don't get involved with any work that Richard R. Martin does with the bid for that reason, but I just think I want to make that public so people don't think anything, and I just to be on the safe side, I won't vote on this evening.
Thank you. I mean, I have to say there is no party to which you would not add value. So thank you for...
It's definitely not a pecuniary interest, but I think just to be on the safe side, and I just want to be open and honest, and everybody knows that.
Thank you, and we note your involvement in Phillips. Thank you. Councillor Brown, did you move your hand to say you wish to make a comment?
I didn't, Leader. I will say there very briefly, I think there is something about bids more generally, but also very specifically, isn't there, as far as supporting our businesses and our town centres, that's invaluable.
Great, thank you. Councillor Golding, your microphone's off, so I presume you're ready to speak, no? Great. Okay, Cabinet, are we agreed that we've all spoken on this? Therefore, I move you to page 76, which is the recommendation to us to note the content of the report and the intention of the Basingstoke Together bid to hold a ballot on the 8th of January 21, subject to the approval of the Board of Directors, subject to the outcome of the Extraordinary Bid Board meeting on the 16th of December 20, and the consideration of the final bid proposals. The Cabinet, in principle, endorses the renewal of the bid. Following an extraordinary bid board meeting on the 16th of December and consideration of the final proposals, the leader will determine whether the council endorses the renewal. I will obviously do that in consultation with you as my cabinet. To authorise the chief executive to complete the ballot paper on the bid ballot on behalf of the council in consultation with me as leader. Should it be necessary to authorise the chief executive in consultation with the leader to veto the bid proposals within 14 days of the ballot? I do not expect that, but of course we need to carry that forward as a recommendation. Are we agreed that we accept that recommendation as in front of us? Thank you very much. Therefore, Cabinet, I think that we have gone through all of tonight's agenda. There are no exclusions of the press, and there are no confidential or exempt items other than the bid papers on which we did not discuss. So I thank you for your time and attention. I thank the public for watching, and also fellow councillors who joined us today in our deliberations. Thank you and good night.